Tonight, no deal, the starting line of one of the largest strikes in Canadian history. Federal workers to walk off the job.
Our members are prepared to fight for a good, decent, fair collective agreement.
Nationwide disruptions in a deepening labor dispute. The climbing cost of food as the pace of inflation slows.
Having 2 kids, it's exceptionally expensive.
Plus, a high-profile shift at Canada's largest grocery store chain. And a young musician turned medical advocate.
Physically, I'd been fine.
I figured no one else is talking about this. I just started making videos. I might as well do it.
The online inspiration from an Ontario teenager.
In my left eye,
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. Breaking news as we come on the air tonight. Thousands of public service workers are walking off the job after mediated talks with the federal government and the union collapsed.
We set a deadline for 9 p.m. this evening, and I can tell you that we do not have a tentative agreement. The Public Service Alliance of Canada, 155,000 members, will be on strike as of 12:01 a.m.
Let's bring in CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver in Ottawa, who has been tracking the late developments. So, Annie, what does this mean in terms of services that could be impacted?
Well, Omar, after almost 2 years of bargaining, it was down to the wire. But the union and the federal government just could not reach a deal. Now, 2 groups of workers, 120,000 employed by the Treasury Board and another 35,000 who work for the CRA, are on strike. While the union won't discuss the issues at the table, the sticking points have so far been wage increases and remote work. Treasury Board is offering a 9% raise over 3 years, but the union wants a 13.5% raise over the same time period. In terms of impacts, expect delays in the processing of new immigration, employment insurance, and passport applications. There could also be delays at the border and at airports. And if you haven't filed your taxes yet, there could be delays getting tax returns, and trying to get someone on the phone for help answering questions won't be easy. Now, starting tomorrow, more than 250 picket lines will be set up across the country. Here in Ottawa, they'll happen outside the Treasury Board President's office, Parliament Hill, the Prime Minister's office, and that of a few other Ottawa-Gatineau Liberal MPs. In order to get strike pay, union members must show up in person to a picket line. Now, the union says negotiations are ongoing and that they will remain at the bargaining table for as long as it takes. But as it stands, Omar, the union says the 2 sides are a ways apart.
And all this happening, as you mentioned, Annie, days before tax deadline day, May 1st. All right, thank you for this tonight. The Prime Minister acknowledged today workers are struggling with the high cost of living, but the cost of his family vacation was the lead item in question period. Justin Trudeau stayed with friends in Jamaica over Christmas, with the price tag going to taxpayers.
One quarter say they've canceled their vacations altogether, but they'll still have to pay for someone else's vacation. $160,000 of taxpayer expenses for the Prime Minister to go down to the private villa.
Our family have been good friends with this family for about 50 years, and as always, we work with the Ethics Commissioner to make sure that all rules are followed.
Documents tabled in the House of Commons showed the trip cost $162,000. $115,000 of that went to the RCMP for security. One of the best-known businessmen in the country stepped back from his role today. Galen Weston will no longer be president of Loblaw, though he will remain chair of its board and CEO of its parent company. Weston and other grocery store execs have been criticized for high prices. And while new numbers show inflation is starting to fall, some food costs keep rising. Here's CTV's Heather Wright.
Inflation may be cooling, but it's hard to tell at the grocery store.
I mean, everything's more expensive, obviously.
Canada's inflation rate slowed to 4.3% last month, down from 5.2% in February. Gasoline is also down nearly 14% compared to a year ago. But the cost of groceries is still sky high, up nearly 10% year over year. And while food prices aren't rising as fast as they once were, they are still going up at a pace more than twice the overall inflation rate.
Having 2 kids, it's exceptionally expensive.
And those high prices might be here to stay, according to food expert Sylvain Charlebois, who says the rising cost of labor, manufacturing, and transportation all gets passed along to the consumer.
It's not just grocery, it's in processing, transportation. Margins are incredibly low. So when wages go up, you have to really recalibrate and change all your pricing.
Despite being a low-margin business, grocery companies have seen their revenue and profits soar alongside inflation.
For you, is there no limit to how much profit you can make?
Profitability.
An issue several CEOs were grilled about by MPs last month.
I know food prices are top of mind these days.
And as the face of Loblaws, company president Galen Weston has been a target of much of the criticism. Today, he announced he will step back from day-to-day operations at the company in early 2024, while keeping his position as chair of the board.
Galen Weston just became this lightning rod and also became a distraction.
The company says this move is not reactionary and that it began its search for a new CEO last August.
Certainly higher interest rates have had a...
Also questioned by MPs was Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem, who today predicted more progress on inflation in the coming months.
We're expecting it to be about 3 this summer, 2.5 by the end of the year, and 2% by the end of 2024.
While the rise of interest rates is helping cool inflation, it's also driving mortgage rates way up. They have surged 26.4%, the largest yearly increase on record. Omar.
All right, Heather, thanks. The war in Ukraine has compounded the high cost of living and also further complicated Russia's relationship with the West. Today, Moscow summoned the Canadian, American, and British ambassadors over their, quote, crude interference in Russia's internal affairs. The trio of top diplomats condemned the conviction of Putin critic Vladimir Kara-Murza. Also today, a Russian court rejected Evan Gershkovich's appeal against pretrial detention. Moscow has charged the American journalist with spying. After 2 weeks of unnerving silence, the Edmonton families of 5 missing Canadians in Syria have received word their loved ones are still alive. They were set to be repatriated earlier this month, but mysteriously never got on the plane. CTV's Judy Trin with new details about their plight.
The 2 women and 3 teenage girls were last seen at Al Hall camp. They were supposed to get on a repatriation plane 14 days ago, but disappeared. This morning, their family in Edmonton got proof of life in a 4-minute call.
One of the ladies said that they were alive, that they had been imprisoned for the last 11 days, that they had been mistreated by the Kurdish guards.
Zachary Al-Khatib represents the detainees. He says his clients were taken to what they called the Red Prison. Human rights workers who have visited the camp say the prison is likely a red brick administrative building behind barbed wire.
It's used for interrogation, and some women have alleged that they were horribly mistreated, in some cases tortured inside.
I know I'm devastated.
Al-Khatib shared a recording of a phone call between Global Affairs and relatives. The original plan was for the 5 females at Al Hall to be transported to nearby Camp Al Raj to join the other Canadians. Then, all 19 would be flown by U.S. military plane out of the region. Canadian diplomats participated in a photo op for a handover ceremony. But from the recording, it appears the government signed the documents knowing that not everyone would be on the plane.
Even during the handover of the rest of the women where we signed the documents, we've let it know, and hey, we're missing 5 of the people we expected to have.
Al-Khatib says the detainees followed the government's directions before they were placed in prison.
Their worst fears came true, and the government has not, up until this point, fulfilled its commitments to them.
The 5 Canadians have now been transferred to Al Raj camp. It's considered safer and closer to the airfield. But Omar, Global Affairs has given no indication of when it will send another plane.
Judy, thank you. The man from Kansas City accused of shooting a black teenager who rang his doorbell is out on bail tonight. 84-year-old Andrew Lester is facing 2 felony charges for opening fire on 16-year-old Ralph Yarl, who was at the wrong address to pick up his brothers.
He is healing. He is trying to make sense of something that seems to be really senseless right now.
Students at his school marched in protest today.
We love you, Ralph. We love you.
Yarrow was shot in the head and arm and is now recovering at home. And Kaylin Gillis was shot and killed in upstate New York after the car she was in pulled into the wrong driveway while looking for a friend's house. The homeowner opened fire on the vehicle and has been charged with second-degree murder. A surprise settlement today in a high-profile defamation case involving one of the world's top media companies. Just hours after the jury was sworn in, Fox News agreed to pay Dominion Voting Systems more than $787 million for peddling on-air falsehoods about voting machines in the 2020 U.S. election, one of the largest settlements in a defamation case in American history, but less than half the $1.6 billion Dominion was seeking. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin on what the two sides are saying tonight.
In a case that pitted the truth against lies, the trial was over before it began. Fox News agreed to pay Dominion Voting Systems an historic amount, $787.5 million.
The truth matters. Lies have consequences.
Dominion, which was founded in Canada, sued Fox for smearing its reputation, claiming Fox personalities and guests knowingly spread lies that Dominion's voting machines rigged the presidential election against Donald Trump.
You've heard a lot over the past few days about the security of our electronic voting machines. And this is a real issue.
Dominion machine that's as filled with holes as Swiss cheese and was developed to steal elections.
Evidence showed Fox executives and journalists knew they were lies in emails and texts mocking Trump's claims as ludicrous, really crazy stuff, totally off the rails. Dominion claimed Fox continued to broadcast conspiracies anyway, fearing it would lose its audience.
Fox has admitted to telling lies about Dominion that caused enormous damage to my company, our employees, and the customers that we serve. Nothing can ever make up for that.
Fox now avoids the spectacle of its stars and chairman Rupert Murdoch from taking the witness stand.
Because it has an audience of millions of people that are basically addicted to what Fox News provides. So this is a bad blow for Fox, but it's not a fatal blow.
In a statement tonight, Fox News acknowledged certain claims about Dominion were false, but you likely won't hear any of its stars apologizing on air. Omar?
All right, Joy, thanks. In New York City, at least one person was killed and 5 others were injured when a parking garage collapsed late this afternoon in Lower Manhattan. Cars got crushed as floors fell on top of each other. No word on cause. A mother with a newborn baby says she faced discrimination on a Flair Airlines flight when all they wanted to do was sit in the seats they paid for. CTV's Adrian Gobriel reports on the cabin confrontation.
Can you just calm down? If you're not calming down, we have to get you out of this aircraft.
A stern warning on board a Flair Airlines flight to a family just trying to sit in their assigned seats.
You are. That is exactly what you are. Excuse me, ma'am.
Museo LA was holding her 12-week-old baby when she boarded a flight in Vancouver last week. Assigned seat 2A, the nursing mother was surprised to find another passenger in her spot. The woman in LA's seat refused to move.
Do you see the problem? Do you see the problem right here?
Instead of removing the passenger from the seat,
So you want the window seat? Is that seat okay?
Flair staff told the new mother, who'd recently moved to Canada from Nigeria, that she and her child would be the ones moving.
I don't want to voice out my anger.
The tense turn of events resulting in LA being told that if she and her child didn't accept a new seat, they'd be removed from the flight, not the woman sitting in their assigned spot.
We have to get you out of this aircraft.
You're threatening his family with a little kid.
The LA's believe Flair Airline staff should have demanded the difficult passenger get up or get off the flight.
But they allowed it to happen. It's discrimination.
Flair's own website lists refusal to follow instructions of the crew as a prohibited behavior. In an email, the airline admits staff did ask the passenger in 2A to move to her assigned seat, but she refused multiple times. Unfortunately, this caused the situation to escalate. Other passengers generously offered their seat to the mother and child. After CTV News reached out to the airline, they fully refunded the LAs for their plane tickets. So the family say this isn't about the money.
It's about acknowledging that you did my family wrong and apologizing for it.
Flair Airlines claim a representative did call the family and apologize. The LAs acknowledge they did receive a phone call, though they say They're still waiting for an official apology. Omar?
Adrian Gabriel in Toronto, thanks. Coming up after the break.
He tried to open the bag.
The young girl who found fentanyl at school. Plus, a dangerous direct hit on an Ontario highway. A crisis of incomprehensible scale. That's how BC's chief coroner described new numbers on illicit drug overdoses that show nearly 600 people died in the first 3 months of this year. The grim snapshot comes on the same day a child's mother shared details about her daughter's shocking discovery at her elementary school. BC Bureau Chief Melanie Nagy explains.
At an Nanaimo elementary school, a plastic pouch was picked up by 5-year-old Everly, but unknown to her, the small packet contained traces of deadly fentanyl.
It's a horrible feeling to think about your kids dying.
Andrea Miller is Everly's mother. She says her daughter grabbed the baggie last week during recess, tucking it away because it looked like a toy.
She tried to open the bag so that she could put her stuff in it. Thank goodness she could not get the bag open.
Miller later found Everly playing with the pouch, and when she did, she not only called police, but got the contents tested.
Based on what the drug testing place site told me, based on the amount that was in the bag, that it likely would be fatal to my child.
Fentanyl, a powerful synthetic opioid, is now found in most illicit street drugs in Canada. In BC, the drug has been linked to nearly 90% of all overdoses. Since January, 596 lives in the province have been lost to toxic, unregulated drugs. That's the second highest total ever recorded in the first 3 months of a calendar year. At the school where fentanyl was found, officials say the grounds have now been cleaned and patrols of the area have increased.
We want to make sure that it's safe for our students.
As for Everly, her mom says she's healthy, safe, and now knows better than to pick up anything unfamiliar. Melanie Nagy, CTV News, Vancouver.
And terrifying moments for a driver and her 11-year-old son on an Ontario highway near Toronto. That tire that smashed into their windshield came off a pickup truck traveling in the opposite direction on the 407. Here's another angle. You can see it skip across live lanes of traffic, across a barrier, and into the minivan. Provincial police say the tires on the pickup were changed about 2 weeks ago, but clearly weren't installed properly. A close call. Still ahead, courageous revelations. Why this Montreal area mayor is speaking out now after being sexually assaulted by a Parti Québécois politician. The mayor of a Montreal suburb is speaking out tonight about the sexual assault that altered the trajectory of her promising career in provincial politics. Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin reports.
When Catherine Fournier headed into a courtroom last year, her identity was protected by a publication ban. Now the high-profile Quebec politician has publicly disclosed she was the victim in a sexual assault case that shook the province. I wanted to tell victims they're not alone, says Fournier. And she wanted to share her emotional journey through the justice system in this documentary.
It needs a lot of courage to do what Catherine did, and maybe, and I hope, it will help other women.
In 2016, Fournier, then aged 24, was a rising star, the youngest woman ever elected to Quebec's National Assembly.
I was involved in the Parti Québécois since I am 18 or 19 years old. So I really knew that's what I wanted to do.
Less than a year later, she was sexually assaulted by politician Harold Lebel, a well-known 30-year veteran of the Parti Québécois. 3 years went by before Fournier went to police, frightened of the repercussions of her identity being revealed. By then, she had left provincial politics. And in 2021, she was elected mayor of Longueuil. After Lebel was arrested, there was a leak, her identity revealed without her consent. It was a devastating moment, she says, but one that prompted her to ask the court to lift the publication ban now so she could share her own story. Lebel was sentenced to 8 months in jail, but he's out on parole now after serving a quarter of that time. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
Nearly 4 months after suffering a life-threatening injury on the football field, Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills has been cleared to play.
I've been beating statistics my whole life, you know, and some people might say that coming back to play might not be the best option, but that's their opinion.
The 25-year-old needed CPR after making a tackle during a game in Cincinnati. He says doctors found that the hit to his chest caused his heart to stop. After the break, the talented young artist trying to help those with a rare eye condition. A young man in Ontario has set his sights on using the transformative power of social media to document and draw attention to a rare eye condition. CTV's Heather Butts with the vision behind the teenager's online advocacy.
With talent like this, Adam Brown prefers to play without sheet music.
Of course, there's visual stuff to it, but when I'm playing the piano, it's all in the hands.
The artistic 19-year-old was born with retinitis pigmentosa, a degenerative eye disease.
It hinders pretty much every aspect of my vision.
I'm visually impaired! What?
He's not shy about it, sharing his condition with the world.
It progressively gets worse as you age, until eventually you start seeing that.
The blind and visually impaired community is not small, but it is super quiet and super overlooked.
Let me get you guys caught up.
He found creative ways to help others open their eyes to possible solutions, including Luxturna, a gene therapy that slows or may even restore some vision loss.
Surgeries like this need to be prioritized, and they need to be made accessible because, surprise, it turns out that seeing things is actually kinda helpful.
Approved by Health Canada in 2020, only now are many provinces making it available. Adam was among the first to receive it in Ontario last month.
My night vision has gotten a lot better, which is a really, really big thing. My peripheral vision has gotten a lot more clear.
His sister Jenna has the same condition and recently underwent treatment. 10 years ago, she was part of the clinical trial in the U.S.
We're finally seeing it through. It's really amazing.
While about 50 Canadians who have the particular gene mutation are eligible for Luxturna, there are 20,000 Canadians living with an inherited retinal disease.
It's life-changing for the individuals who can get it, and it just provides hope for the entire vision loss community that there might be more treatments coming for their types of eye diseases.
Until then, this young artist will continue to lend his voice to the cause. Heather Butts, CTV News, Toronto.
And that is a snapshot of this Tuesday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching, and good night.